we were clueless as to what could have caused this tragedy right under our noses. In an era when we have the internet, satellite, radar communication, it just disappears off the radar screen.
For over a decade, the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 baffled the world, leaving behind more questions than answers. Despite the largest aviation search in history, the plane's main wreckage and black boxes remained lost in the depths of the Indian Ocean. Until now, what could be hidden in the last moments recorded beneath 20,000 feet of freezing, crushing pressure? When an advanced underwater drone finally found the black box, the audio it recovered shattered the accepted story, forcing experts into stunned silence. The elusive wreckage and breakthrough discovery. For years, the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 was one of the most confounding mysteries in aviation history. Despite extensive multinational searches, investigators could not find the plane's main wreckage or the crucial black boxes that hold the final moments of the flight. The ocean depths where the plane was believed to have gone down posed extreme challenges. Pressures so intense they would crush a human instantly, and temperatures barely above freezing. These hostile conditions made underwater exploration slow, expensive, and largely unsuccessful, leaving families and experts desperate for answers. In early 2024, Ocean Infinity, a private seabed exploration company, launched a new attempt using radically advanced autonomous underwater vehicles equipped with artificial intelligence-powered sonar and imaging technology. Unlike traditional sonar arrays that depended on slow, surface-tethered vessels, these drones operated independently, diving nearly 20,000 feet deep, mapping vast underwater areas with unprecedented precision. Their ability to cover hundreds of square kilometers in detailed scans shortened what would have taken years to mere weeks. For the families waiting and the world watching, hope shimmered again. Weeks into the expanded search north of previous zones suggested by debris drift analysis, one of these underwater vehicles detected an unusual sonar signature, a field of wreckage spread over nearly 2 square kilometers on the ocean floor. The materials and arrangement did not match natural formations. Soon after, remotely operated vehicles with high-definition cameras were sent down to confirm what the sonar suggested. The cameras illuminated fragments of commercial aircraft, identifiable by the faded red and blue Malaysia Airlines livery, scattered and partially buried in sediment. Among the debris was something extraordinary: the bright orange casing of a flight data recorder, the so-called black box, designed to withstand crashes and extreme pressures. Its discovery resolved years of frustration. Finally, the device that could hold the last seconds of Flight 370's story was in hand. Yet, despite the breakthrough, the picture was far from complete. The wreckage told a violent tale, with wings and engines torn apart and scattered hundreds of meters apart across the seabed. In this stillness, the ocean whispered secrets that would soon challenge everything known about the tragedy. The condition and arrangement of the wreckage suggested a catastrophic impact rather than a gentle ditching. The cockpit section was crushed beyond recognition, yet the flight recorders remained intact, a small beacon of hope amid the devastation. Investigators noticed that several safety systems had mysteriously failed to activate. Life rafts remained stowed, emergency locator transmitters were disabled, and emergency slides had not deployed. These anomalies deepened the mystery surrounding the final moments before the crash. Transitioning from the ocean's dark depths, the story turns toward the flight's last known journey and the baffling signals that confounded controllers and investigators alike. Flight 370's last known journey. On the night of March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 took off from Kuala Lumpur International Airport on what was supposed to be a routine overnight flight to Beijing. The Boeing 777-200ER was a trusted, reliable aircraft, having served since 2002 with over 53,000 flight hours logged. The crew was experienced and professional, Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah had more than 18,000 hours of flight time, while First Officer Fariq Abdul Hamid had nearly 3,000. Weather conditions were clear, and all pre-flight checks indicated the plane was fit to fly. For the first hour, everything proceeded normally. Flight 370 climbed to its cruising altitude of 35,000 feet and followed its heading northeast toward Beijing. Air traffic control maintained routine contact, and the plane sent out automated system status updates, as expected. However, at 1:07 a.m., the aircraft communications addressing and reporting system transmitted its last scheduled status report. The next one, due at 1:37 a.m., never came. At 1:19 a.m., as the plane crossed from Malaysian airspace into Vietnamese airspace, Captain Zahari made his final radio transmission, a simple, calm, "Good night, Malaysian 370." Shortly after, at 1:21 a.m., the aircraft's transponder, which broadcasts location, altitude, and speed, went silent. Even though the plane disappeared from the detailed civilian radar screen, it remained visible on primary radar, which detects objects without transponder signals. This caused confusion, as controllers expected further contact that never came. The Vietnamese controllers became aware of an emergency situation when they detected irregularities at 1:38 a.m. The Malaysian military radar tracked the plane as it made a sudden left turn, which resulted in an eastward flight over the Malay Peninsula. The aircraft flew northwest, above the Andaman Sea. Search teams lost vital information for several days, which resulted in an operational delay that caused them to search the wrong areas for extended periods until they found the necessary information. For hours, Flight 370 flew undetected by civilian radar and military radar operators because they had not discovered the hidden aircraft. A satellite owned by Inmarsat, which is a British company, sent its last automated handshake signal from the aircraft's satellite communication system at 8:19 a.m., more than 7 hours after the aircraft took off. The aircraft continued operational status after it lost contact with ground controllers because a digital ping proved that its system stayed active. The failures and complications of the search efforts exposed cracks in coordination and trust that would only deepen the anguish of families and experts waiting for answers. Search efforts and early failures. The search for Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 quickly became the most expensive and extensive aviation rescue effort in history. Over 2 years, multinational teams scoured an area of ocean larger than the state of Pennsylvania, deploying the latest sonar equipment, autonomous underwater vehicles, and towed sonar arrays. The seabed between 3 and 6 kilometers deep was meticulously mapped, covering hundreds of thousands of square kilometers. Yet, despite such immense effort, no trace of the main wreckage or black boxes was found. Part of the challenge was simply the vastness and hostility of the southern Indian Ocean, remote, deep, and difficult to navigate. In the early days, search zones focused on the South China Sea, between Malaysia and Vietnam, based on the plane's planned route. But debris found in those waters never belonged to Flight 370. What complicated matters further was the delay in sharing military radar information. Malaysian authorities withheld data confirming the aircraft's sharp turn and return flight path for 4 critical days. This withheld intelligence sent searchers in the wrong direction for too long. The aerial search operation required a new search area, which extended toward the Andaman Sea together with the Strait of Malacca, after the search team discovered the first actual flight route. The searchers then relied heavily on data from the Inmarsat satellite handshake pings, which used mathematical formulas based on time and frequency changes to predict the airplane's ending point. The method had uncertainties which depended on specific assumptions about the airplane's speed and direction and flying altitude. Independent experts questioned these assumptions because they believed the official search area would produce incorrect results if the plane had been manually flown, rather than on autopilot in a straight line. The efforts faced obstacles which created uncertainty about their success rate. because of all the unknown factors that existed. The families of missing passengers reached a state of frustration while they searched for information about their lost relatives. The official searches ended in January 2017 without reaching any conclusive findings, yet multiple lawsuits and transparency demands emerged from various parties. The ocean remained completely silent despite search expenses which reached over $200 million. Pieces of debris began washing ashore on beaches across the western Indian Ocean, flaperons, cabin fragments, landing gear, confirming Flight 370 had crashed, but offering clues that sometimes contradicted simplified crash scenarios. The drift pattern suggested the main wreckage might lie far north of earlier search zones. From the vast, murky expanse of the Indian Ocean, we move closer to the data that reshaped the investigation, the black boxes, and the chilling recordings they contained. The black boxes and disturbing recordings. When the black boxes from Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 were finally recovered from the depths, they carried the only true record of the plane's final moments. The flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder are designed tough, built to survive extreme impacts and deep ocean pressure, preserving every system parameter and cockpit sound. Inside these devices lay a detailed technical log, including altitude, airspeed, heading, engine performance, autopilot status, and control inputs, as well as 2 hours of cockpit audio that could reveal what really happened on that fateful night. The flight data showed something striking. After the transponder stopped transmitting, the plane climbed well above its certified maximum altitude, reaching 43,000 feet, where air is so thin, normal flight is impossible. Yet, surprisingly, it leveled off momentarily at that height before descending back to a more typical cruising altitude. This kind of deliberate altitude change contradicted the idea of a simple autopilot failure or mechanical issue, suggesting someone was actively controlling the aircraft. Perhaps even more chilling was the cabin pressure data. At such extreme altitude, cabin pressure dropped to a level that would cause unconsciousness within seconds if oxygen masks didn't deploy. The evidence suggested that oxygen masks were not deployed or had been intentionally disabled, indicating that everyone inside the cabin would have lost consciousness quickly, turning the cabin into a ghostly, silent space. The flight path data recorded a series of turns and altitude changes over several hours, showing the plane flying northwest toward the Andaman Sea, then turning south into the vast Indian Ocean. For most of this time, the autopilot was engaged, following what seemed like a programmed route to a remote and inhospitable part of the ocean. But in the last half hour, the autopilot was turned off, and manual control was taken over. This suggested a human presence deeply involved in the final descent. The descent itself reached execution through controlled and deliberate movements. The aircraft ascended to its highest point, but its engines stopped working when it reached an altitude under 100 feet. The impact occurred at nearly 200 knots, which resulted in a high-speed crash that scattered wreckage throughout the area. The data showed that the plane descended to the water through a determined method which the pilots had already planned. The cockpit voice recorder held the audio that confirmed what the data suggested. The last 2 hours of the flight experienced complete silence because there were no conversations and no radio transmissions and no alarms that sounded. The aircraft systems produced constant noise while pilots operated the cockpit switches. In the last moments of the flight, a single Malay speaker delivered a calm message. The flight was tracked through Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, who narrated his movements while operating the plane in isolation. The recording remains protected from public access, but investigators reported that the voice maintained a steady focus while he executed a plan. He described how he disabled the emergency locator transmitter because this action stopped the beacon from sending distress signals. The captain explained the flight path through his own description of events, which ended with him praying just before the final impact. The gravity of these revelations stunned experts and shifted the narrative dramatically. This new understanding of the flight's final moments created a painful turning point, revealing the captain's central role and forcing a deeper look into his motives and the circumstances leading up to that night. unveiling the pilot's role and hidden motives. From the cockpit voice recorder presented a picture of the aviation community. Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, alone in the cockpit, calmly piloting Flight 370 through its last, deliberate hours. Contrary to earlier speculation about hijackings or mechanical failure, the recording suggests the pilot was fully in control until the end. This realization brought the focus sharply onto the man at the helm and what might have driven him to take such a tragic course. Investigators examined Captain Zahari's background with scrutiny. His flight record was exemplary, with thousands of flight hours and no overt signs of extremist beliefs, financial trouble, or personal crisis. These findings baffled experts since no clear motive appeared. His final calm narration seemed more like the actions of a man on a mission than someone in panic or distress. Yet the voice on the recording suggested a resolve and intention that defied easy understanding. Even the passengers came under intense review. 2 individuals aboard carried stolen passports, prompting initial conspiracy theories, but these were debunked as unrelated to the flight's disappearance. There was no evidence anyone else aboard had the means or motive to seize control of the aircraft. The absence of external interference deepened the mystery about why the captain would take such actions alone. The mechanical failure theory appeared increasingly unlikely. Boeing 777 aircraft have a strong safety record with multiple redundant systems to overcome failures. Flight 370’s systems all went dark simultaneously across several channels: transponder, radio, and automated data transmissions, something almost impossible without human intervention. The plane's continued controlled flight for hours after losing contact further suggested deliberate handling rather than technical chaos. The Malaysian government faced strong public backlash because it handled the information disclosure process. Search teams received only partial radar data, which tracked the plane's unusual flight path during its most critical initial search period. The official statements created conflicting information, which led to family members accusing officials of hiding information while showing their inability to handle the situation. Government officials who protected national airline interests created international distrust, which accompanied conspiracy theories about the situation. The official investigation reports contained one disturbing footnote, which showed that the aircraft had documented maintenance problems throughout the months leading up to the flight, when it experienced multiple vital flaperon actuator system failures. Malaysia Airlines chose to postpone essential flaperon maintenance operations, which had been scheduled for inspection and repair because they wanted to keep the aircraft operational. The company showed through its internal communications that financial objectives took priority over maintaining proper safety measures. The institutional failure created direct links, which brought about the ultimate disaster. Flight 370 disappeared completely after the airline postponed essential maintenance work on the aircraft. The combination of a pilot acting with intent and an aircraft with known structural issues pointed to a complex failure of both human and organizational responsibility. Families and the public wanted to know how the system breakdowns had led to this catastrophic event. From the haunting voice in the cockpit to the buried maintenance records, the story of Flight 370 forces us to confront uncomfortable truths far beyond the ocean's depths. Maintenance, secrets, and failings exposed. The black boxes did more than reveal the flight's final path and cockpit audio. They uncovered disturbing maintenance issues that had been concealed for years. Investigators found that in the months leading up to the disappearance, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370’s had documented repeated failures of a critical structural component, the flaperon actuator. This part controls a key wing surface that helps stabilize the aircraft during flight. Despite these serious faults being reported, required inspections and repairs were repeatedly deferred. Emails uncovered after the wreckage was found showed management discussions about postponing maintenance to avoid grounding the aircraft and losing revenue. The pressure to keep the plane flying took precedence over safety warnings issued by engineers and even Boeing. These internal warnings had clearly flagged the flaperon actuator as a danger, yet the airline chose to delay costly repairs. This institutional neglect laid a foundation for tragedy. Such deferrals meant the aircraft flew repeatedly with known mechanical vulnerabilities. Experts point out that a faulty flaperon actuator compromised the plane's ability to respond correctly in flight, potentially contributing to the unusual altitude changes and erratic flight path recorded in the black box data. While this may not fully explain the deliberate actions in the cockpit, it underscores how compromised equipment added serious risks. The pilot's deliberate operation of the aircraft, together with the identification of structural defects in the plane, demonstrates multiple instances of operational failure. The captain's conduct resulted in a catastrophic event, which the airline company faced accountability for operating an aircraft with doubtful safety standards. The official reports about this incident failed to recognize multiple ways in which the case worsened the existing situation. The family members of the departed and the aviation field specialists reacted with astonishment to the newly discovered information. They investigated the reasons which enabled safety violations to occur and which permitted maintenance documentation to stay undisclosed during an extended period. The incomplete information disclosure by both Malaysia Airlines and government officials increased public suffering because it created a lack of trust. The public demanded responsible actions which should address both pilot duties and institutional safety failures following these new discoveries. The legal outcomes remained restricted because the maintenance documents which emerged after the accident did not lead to any criminal charges. The parties involved reached settlements while they conducted their corporate restructuring activities in secret. The industry adopted new safety regulations as official standards 2 years after the disaster, but the protective measures which could have avoided the catastrophe had already expired. The ocean floor contains the wreckage as families continue their quest for justice and answers. Malaysia Airlines Flight 370’s tragedy was not just an accident lost to the ocean, but a story of human decisions, hidden dangers, and unanswered questions. The breakthrough discovery of the black boxes revealed truths that many hesitated to face, forcing us to confront failures on multiple levels. If you found this investigation insightful, please like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into stories that need telling. Your support helps us uncover the truths others overlook.